For those who don't know me, my name is Jacob Ray. I'm the youth minister here. I get to hang out with these guys over here. They're the best. So if you need to know who the best are at this church, it's them over there. But we are, absolutely. So we're in our this new series called Uncharted. And this is week 2. Last week you got to hear about just navigating this life, navigating what's placed before us. How do we navigate these uncharted waters, uncharted territory? And we talked about comfort zones last week. We talked about Abraham and his life. And so this week, we're going to be talking about another man in the Old Testament, a man named Joshua. But to kind of set the stage of Joshua, I kind of want to talk about this mentality that takes place in really professional sports, but in the NFL especially, and this mentality of next man up, being the next man up. And it's one that, in the NFL or professional sports, you might see people retire, you might see injuries take place, you might just see somebody not doing a very good job at their position, and so Lions, so what you'll see is the coach just called next man up. All right, who's ready? Who's the next person that's going to come up and perform for us? And that's very much the life of Joshua that we're going to get into. But thinking about next man up, for me, when I think of next man up, I go back to my sophomore year of college. I played baseball in college at Johnson University, and I remember my sophomore year there were really 3 main pitchers. I was a pitcher. And there was 2 juniors, so a couple older guys, and then me. But what took place, we were down in Georgia playing Toccoa Falls College, and the 2 juniors got hurt in the same inning of the same game. And the coach was like, all right, well, you're pretty much pitching every inning the rest of the season. So just thinking about next man up. But what can happen with the next man up mentality is whoever is that next man up, there can be next woman too, of course. We're not going to leave anybody out here. But just this mentality of next person up, there can be very much thoughts of inadequacy, not feeling prepared for what's in front of them. Another thing too, I think of Tom Brady and just the quarterback he's been, how consistent he's been, and think about whenever he retires. I don't know, he might go until he's 55 or something, but whenever he retires, whoever the next quarterback is in New England, they're going to have a tough job ahead of them. Trying to replace being the next man up of Tom Brady, that's going to put a lot of pressure on whoever that is, and that's what we feel a lot of times as we're trying to navigate our life, trying to be just the next thing that comes up, next thing. Is how do we respond to that? What do we need to do with that? And so last week we talked about comfort zones, and tonight I don't know where that's coming from. This morning we're going to be talking about being consistent. Being consistent with our lives and what that looks like, because I know that the only thing that we're really consistent with is being inconsistent. That's our lives. We are a very inconsistent people. We're going to take a look at Joshua's life and learn from him how he navigated just different territories, new things placed in front of him. And we see that Joshua had some huge shoes to fill in Moses. And you think about all the things that Moses accomplished throughout, we know it through the book of Exodus and Leviticus, Numbers, and so on. But we think about him parting the Red Sea. We think about him interacting with Jesus, and the burning bush. We think about him going up on Mount Sinai and receiving, all the commandments. Moses was like the guy. There was nobody above Moses. Throughout the rest of the Old Testament and even into the New Testament, Moses was looked at as the guy. But it came to be, and we're going to jump into Joshua in the first chapter, verses 1 and 2. We get to see this moment of next man up in Joshua's life. And it says, after the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord said to Joshua, son of Nun, Moses' aide, said, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now then, you and all these people get ready to cross the Jordan River into the land I am about to give them to the Israelites. So we see that Moses has passed away, and God is saying, hey, Joshua, Moses is gone. I need the next man up. I need somebody to come in and lead these people into the promised land. Because they've been traveling for 40 years in the wilderness. Moses is the one who led them up out of Egypt. And now God is saying, Joshua, I want it to be you to lead the people, to finish the job, lead the people into the promised land. And I can only imagine what Joshua, what was going on through his mind. Just being like, I'm supposed to do what Moses was supposed to do? Like, how am I supposed to motivate these people? How am I supposed to encourage these people? How am I supposed to lead these people into the promised land? And the good news is we get to really look at three big insights, three things that Joshua did to navigate uncharted territory. And the first one is that he placed his trust in God. That Joshua placed his trust in God. When you think about navigating our life, navigating the things that are in front of us, Joshua trusted in God. And we get to see that really from, his first task. By the way, this is a really cool moment that we're going to be getting into the walls of Jericho, but we need to think about the first task that was given to Joshua. And we see it picking up in verse 3 of chapter 1. God says, I will give you every place where you set foot, as I promised Moses. Your territory will extend from the desert to Lebanon, and from the great river, the Euphrates, all the Hittite country to the Mediterranean Sea in the west. So on this, it'd be helpful if I knew which page I was on. It says, no one will be able to stand against you all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will never leave you nor forsake you. And this is exactly what Joshua needed to hear. After God says, all right, you're the guy now. Next man up, Joshua, it's you. But then God comes in and says, as I was with Moses, never will I leave you, never will I forsake you. See, that Joshua needed to realize and be reminded of that I am the same God that was with Moses. That the God who gave Moses the power to part the Red Sea, I am that same God. And you think about what confidence that would have filled Joshua with. He would have been like, okay, it's like, if you're that same God, then I'm all on board. And what's cool to see that the first task that was given to Joshua was to cross the Jordan River into the Promised Land. And you think about what Joshua and all the Israelites, when they think about going through that Red Sea, and the first task that was given to them was to cross a body of water. That would have been as they're going through the Jordan River, they would have been like, okay, God is still with us. God is still leading us into the Promised Land. And that's such a powerful, powerful thing. That reminder that God is with us. And that's what we need to hear as we're facing hardships, as we're facing life. We need to hear that God, the God of Moses, the God of Joshua, the God of David, the God who sent Jesus into this world for us, is the same God that's still active and loves us today. That's what we need to hear. That's what we need to hear and to help us navigate this life that's in front of us. So the second thing, when we think about Joshua and how he navigated uncharted territory, we see that he was consistent. That Joshua was consistent. It wasn't a matter of, okay, we're in the Promised Land, I'm going to check out. I'm good to go. So we're going to jump here and see a different part of Joshua's story in Joshua chapter 6, in verses 2 through 5. It says, Then the Lord said to Joshua, See, I have delivered Jericho into your hands, along with its king and its fighting men. March around the city once with all the armed men. Do this for 6 days. Have 7 priests carry trumpets of ram's horns in front of the ark. On the 7th day, march around the city 7 times, with the priests blowing the trumpets. When you hear them sound a long blast of the trumpets, have the whole army give a loud shout. Then the wall of the city will collapse, and the army will go up, everyone straight in. Now, Joshua had already been a good leader, been a faithful leader, been consistent in leading. They had gone into the Promised Land, but when Joshua heard this from God, I can only imagine that as he was walking back to tell the priests, to tell the army this, he was probably just like, I I don't know if this is the route I really want to take, because we've just been traveling for 40 years, and now we're in we made it to the promised land, but then you just want to march us around the city once for 6 days, and then on the seventh day do it 7 times. It's just like, Joshua's probably like, I'm not excited about sharing this with my people. So, but he was faithful. But he was faithful. He put his trust in God, and we see he did exactly what God had wanted him to do. And this is jumping to verse 12 in Joshua chapter 6. It says, Joshua got up early the next morning, and the priests took up the ark of the Lord. The 7 priests carrying the 7 trumpets went forward, marching before the ark of the Lord and blowing the trumpets. The armed men went ahead of them, and the rear guard followed the ark of the Lord while the trumpets kept sounding. So on the second day, they marched around the city and returned to the camp. They did this for 6 days. On the 7th day, they got up at daybreak and marched around the city 7 times in the same manner, except on that day, they circled the city 7 times. So it's really, and we might overlook this because it's like a whole week just jammed into a few sentences. But we get to see that, the first morning when Joshua got up, maybe he wasn't excited about like this plan and like having to share it and get everybody up that morning. But the first morning when we have a mission, we're on mission, we want to do something, the first morning's kind of easy. It's like, okay, I can do this. I can go march around the city. That's no problem. Even maybe the second day, it's like, yesterday wasn't that bad. I can do this again. But then maybe you think about what happened the 3rd day, the 4th day, the 5th day, the 6th day, when Joshua would have to wake up and ask himself, is this really worth it? Is this work? Yeah, is this working? Like, we have to get up early and get everybody together and march around the city. And it's fine for a couple of days, but now it's like, I don't see what's happening here. And I think that's a moment, but we do get to see that he was consistent in doing that. But we get to see this next part of navigating our territory, Joshua navigating this uncharted territory for him, is that he was obedient when he couldn't see the outcome. He was obedient even when he couldn't see the outcome. And there's an encouragement that we need to hear this morning. I think it's this one. To remain obedient even when we can't see how it's going to turn out. Even when we think this is completely not worth it. This is not worth my time. This is not worth my energy. I'm done. We see that Joshua set a perfect example for us in being obedient, remaining consistent, even when he couldn't see the outcome. Now, he knew God's promise. He knew that, on the 7th day, when you walk around 7 times, give that shout, the walls will fall. And that is exactly what happened. So Joshua did get to hear what was going to happen, but when you think about it, just the daily grind of going through this, putting forth that effort, and just how hard it must have been. But he remained obedient even when he couldn't see the outcome. So when you're thinking about whatever you're facing, whatever's in front of you, maybe you're the next man up or next woman up at a job. Maybe there's a supervisor position that opened up and you jumped into it, and a lot of stuff is new. I think we need to follow Joshua's example and put our trust in God, remain consistent day in, day out, and remain obedient even when we can't see that it's working. Even when we can't see that we're getting any better, that we're doing any better, that things are working out for me, that things are working out for the people around me. Remain obedient even when you can't see the outcome. And it's so important for us to talk about being consistent because there's just this huge question that we need to ask. And that's, what would it look like if we cared about following Jesus Monday through Saturday as much as we do on Sunday morning? That's a question for me. That's a question for everyone in this room, but I know it's a question for me too. What would it look like in my life if I cared as much about following Jesus day in, day out, all day long, as much as I do Sunday morning throughout the rest of the week? What would that look like? And I kind of want to put it into this context. This may be a little bit silly, but just think about other things that might be good for us. We think about our physical health, and we understand that eating is a big part of surviving. We think about just moving forward, being able to keep going on. We need to eat. So what would take place if the only meal you ate the entire week was Sunday morning? And then you just decided, I don't think I need to eat the rest of the week. I think I'll be good to go. That's something that we're like, no, of course not. Because this food that's going to sustain us. This is food that's going to keep us going throughout the week. But that's exactly, when we think about our physical health, that's the exact same way our spiritual health operates. That we do fall into this trap of, Sunday morning, I'm going to come and fill up, I'm going to sing a few songs, hear a message, maybe go to an equip class, and then, that should carry me over until the next Sunday. And that's how a lot of us operate. It might not be an intentional thought, but it is what takes place for a lot of us. That weeks are hard. We get distracted. There's so much going on. There's so much newness. Maybe we can't see that being faithful and being obedient is working out. So why do it every single day? And this is the importance of being consistent, because just going back to me playing baseball. And I know whenever you guys think of me, I know the very first thought that comes to mind is that I'm muscular. I know that's how it works. But there's been times, as I was going through high school, I played travel ball in middle school, as I was playing in college, that there were times I got excited and I got motivated to work out, to lift weights, to get stronger. There were times where I was like, okay, yeah, let's do this. Let's be on fire. Let's be consistent with this. And again, yeah, those first couple days, I was like, it's like, hey, I'm sore. It's like, but this is nice. This is good for me. But then there's kind of two things that take place over time when we're talking about trying to be consistent. And what would take place whenever I would start working out would be, one, sometimes I'll just be like this, I don't see that I'm getting any stronger, so I don't see the results, so I'm just it's not worth it. I'm not actually getting stronger, so why even bother? And we might think about that in our lives with Christ. I come here on Sundays, I hear a message, and it's exciting, and I get on fire for the rest of the week. But then Monday morning comes, and it's just not working out. I don't see the difference in my life, so why should I keep doing it? And then the other thing that might happen with that is, maybe I'm working out, maybe I'm getting stronger, and then I reach a point where I am noticing the difference. I do feel better about myself. So then we kind of just get comfortable. And we're like, it's like, okay, this is good enough. It's like, I'm now strong enough. I've now figured it out. I'm exactly where I want to be. And again, that's another way that we kind of operate sometimes with our spiritual lives, with our relationship with God. Is that, maybe we are consistent. Maybe we do, pray every day. Maybe we are engaging in this relationship with God, whether it's through reading our Bible, through singing songs of praise to Him. But, maybe we are consistent in that. But there's a danger in falling into a trap of, I think I'm good enough now. I think I'm in a good place. I'm better off than I was before, but I don't know if I really want to keep going because, this is a good spot for me right here. And that's what we have to be careful with. That's exactly what we have to be careful with. And that's exactly why we need to be consistent and keep being consistent. Keep engaging in this relationship with God. Keep engaging in this relationship with the people here at Compass Christian Church. That's why we need to be consistent, because we see the results of being consistent when we keep at it. If I had worked out and kept at it, today I might not look exactly like I do right now. But it's just that consistency that brings about the results. And again, it's not just, and it's a dangerous thought to think that it's results just for my own sake. That we come here on a Sunday morning and I'm just trying to feel better about myself, which is completely valid. We do long for that. But I need to feel better about where I am, who I am. And that's important, and we do need to strive for that, but we don't need to leave it there. Because when you think about the first task given to Joshua, it was to lead the people into the promised land. And we think about next man up throughout the generations, from Moses to Joshua, David, all the way to Jesus, to the disciples, to their disciples, so on and so forth. It's been next man up for generations. And it has landed at us to deliver people into the promised land. That's our task. That's our mission. That's what God's saying to us. That if you're obedient to me, if you're going to put your trust in me, Be a part of this team and help us get people into the promised land. And that comes through consistency. Because what happens if we're consistent, we see a difference in our own lives, but we start to see a difference in how we impact others as well. And that's what it's all about. Yeah, we absolutely should be in a place and strive to be in a place where we feel good about ourselves. But when we're thinking about bringing people into the promised land, bring people into a relationship with God, that's what it's all about. That's what we need to be striving for. Make sure that we're in a good place through our consistency, that we can make an impact on the world around us, on the community around us, in our homes, at our schools, at our jobs. That's what we're striving for. Bring people into the promised land. Bring people into a relationship with God. So as you're thinking about coming up, this week, maybe there are some uncharted territories in front of you coming up, difficulties placed in front of you. It's very much my encouragement that we put our trust in God. We remain consistent every single day, not just when we feel like it, but every single day, and we remain obedient even when we can't see the outcome. That's what we need to strive for, that consistency every single day. And I think this morning is a good spot to, when we think about communion, starting out our week in a place where we can just focus in, bring it in, be reminded, be reflecting on what's been taking place over this past week. Where have I really been with all of this? How consistent have I really been living out this life of following Jesus? And this time of communion, when we get the bread and the cup, it's that time to just focus in and narrow in and say, God, I'm not where I want to be. I might be further along than where I used to be, and I thank you so much for that. But I know that there's so much more that you can do through me. There's so much more that you can do through my life. And so this is a moment for all of us to just come around his table and put our trust in him and reflect on what Jesus has done for us, what God did for us, that he wants a relationship with us. He wants us to be in the promised land so much that he sent his own son to die for us, to be that means for us to have that relationship with him. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, I just thank you for the example that Joshua set. I thank you that he was faithful to you. I thank you that he was consistent in being faithful to you, and that he made a difference, that he changed the lives of the people around him. Thank you for sending your son, who has changed more lives than we can even begin to imagine. Help us to put our faith in him, put our trust in him more completely every single day. God, we love you. Thank you for this time to reflect and make adjustments in our lives. We love you, and it's in your name that we pray. Amen.